people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fucking fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Okay, we'll start with this per tweet from Camille Estefan of Eye of the Tiger Management. It's official, Mary Spencer versus Oglady Suarez. I am happy to announce the return of Mary Spencer on March 23rd. Suarez fought in the World Championship against DeCare and made 10 rounds.
Went the distance.
We are happy with the type of opponent for the return of Mary, and it is true.
She did go to distance with Marie-Eve DeCare, but a few things that need to be mentioned.
A few.
Marie-Eve DeCare is not a big puncher. She's not a knockout merchant.
She never was. And the Marie-Eve DeCare fight, that took place approximately 3 or 4 years ago in 2019. Currently, Oglady Suarez is coming off of a knockout loss to Jade Jagreen, who was in action this past weekend opposite the ring, the very statuesque and physically imposing Eileen Cedar-Ruz, who she also stopped.
She stopped Eileen Cedar-Ruz this past weekend, and she stopped Oglady Suarez before that.
Oglady's, who is now set to share the ring with the hard-punching Mary Spencer. In truth, I take no issue with the fight. I'm actually okay with the fight. They're both coming off of losses.
Oglady Suarez has more professional experience, more pro bouts than Mary, but Mary, to the eye, is a much better boxer than Oglady's.
I think she can return to her winning ways opposite the ring, Venezuela's own Oglady Suarez. And what this fight, what this heralds, what it indicates to me is that they're taking their foot off the gas with Mary Spencer a bit. This is a much more safe fight.
It's certainly a safer fight than running it back with Femke Hermans.
Set to go down on the undercard of Mabili versus Gongora, which will be made available here in the US of A by way of ESPN+.
Just being honest, Mary's probably going to knock her out.
She's probably going to knock out Oglady Suarez. And you have to wonder if an early knockout is really what Mary needs at this point, because it's those early knockouts that gave her a false sense of confidence, really gave us all a false sense of confidence leading up to the Femke Hermans fight.
But she would dispatch Femke just as easily as she dispatched everybody else. That wasn't the case.
I take no issue with this fight or the matchmaking that went into it, the hierarchy of thought. Mary is coming off a loss. She needs an easy one to get herself back in the winner's bracket, but it's also an opportunity to work on things.
It's a good chance Mary Spencer knocks Oglady Suarez out.
Perhaps she should let it go a few rounds before she does.
It's not the worst thing in the world that Mary lost to Femke Hermans, a former champion.
Could result in more situational awareness, and it could end up making Mary a better fighter. So I look forward to seeing her return to action.
Elsewhere in the women's junior middleweight division, Terry Harper, newly crowned WBA junior middleweight champion, is set to make her first title defense.
Per a tweet from International Boxing News, International Boxing News understands that all terms have been agreed for Terry Harper to defend her WBA super welterweight world title against former undisputed welterweight champion Cecilia Brækhus. Cecilia's, who very recently returned to action.
In December of last year, she finally rebounded off those 2 back-to-back losses against Jessica McCaskill opposite the ring, Marisa Portillo.
She won a points decision, and she's back with Jonathan Banks, but in the fight, you could see that Cecilia's lost the step. You could see that there's no sharpness there.
But even though she's not with Abel Sanchez anymore, she's back with her old trainer, Jonathan Banks, and they do have a better working relationship, I think. Cecilia looked a better fighter under Jonathan.
She had in previous years, at least. Though here today, you can see that she's lost a step. You can see that she's not the same fighter that she used to be. And opposite the ring, a younger, stronger, fresher fighter in Terry Harper, who's still acclimating to the junior middleweight division.
This might turn out to be one of those fights that's hard to watch.
Harkening back to the Ali versus Larry Holmes fight, or the Muhammad Ali versus Trevor Berbick fight. That kind of situation, that kind of deal.
I think Terry's going to be too fast for Cecilia, too sharp, and too strong.
Too much for the aging former undisputed champion. I think in this fight, Cecilia Brækhus will always be 1 or 2 steps behind Terry Harper.
Terry Harper, who's versatile, plays the aggressor and the defender equally well.
Isn't boiling down to a very unhealthy 130 pounds anymore. She's a fresher, more invigorated fighter at junior middleweight at 154.
It's going to be target practice for Terry.
Cecilia, a characteristically cerebral fighter, isn't the kind of fighter that has very many defensive deficiencies or defensive lapses in judgment. Tactically and technically, she doesn't make very many mistakes, but she will be noticeably slower than Terry.
It's going to be hard for her to keep up.
Taking chances and mounting any kind of offense opposite the ring, Terry Harper for an aging Cecilia Brækhus would likely backfire. Backfire in a big way.
As stated, this might turn out to be one of those fights that's a little bit hard to watch. Not hard to watch because it's not entertaining. Hard to watch because, you know, Cecilia, she's not at her best.
Father Time may have finally caught up to her, and I have no doubts that what the Brækhus people are thinking is they can land the same kind of overhand right that Alicia Baumgartner landed down there at 130 pounds when she stopped Terry and gave her her first professional loss.
That's likely what Team Brækhus is thinking.
But what I'm thinking is, Cecilia, at this age, she ain't got the speed, the timing, or the reflexes to get off that kind of shot and land it the way Alicia landed it.
Counter right hand over the jab.
Tandem with Terry Harper being a more solid fighter as a junior middleweight, taking a better punch.
Solid.
Now, I don't think this fight ends well for Cecilia Brækhus. I don't. Terry Harper to win is the logical choice, and because she actually is a strong puncher,
Terry can punch.
she could really hurt Cecilia Brækhus, you know.
Set to go down sometime in April at the Utilita Arena in Sheffield.
Matchroom already announced 2 shows set to go down in the month of April. Anthony Joshua's big ring return opposite the ring, Jermaine Franklin, and Joe Cordina's title shot
Opposite the ring, Shavkat Rakhimov. I'm not sure if this show will be added to one of those shows, or will Matchroom be doing 3 shows in the month of April.
We'll just have to wait and see, though I think it comes as a surprise to no one that Terry Harper to win is the logical choice.
Listen, it's not about what Bivol's willing to do. You tip your hat to him for saying, I'll go to 68-75. What I'm saying is Canelo.
Yeah. Oh, I get it.
You shouldn't want it no other way.
I agree.
And what I've said his whole career, man, this is the guy that has a lot of skill and ability, but you won't know how great he is because when it's time to take big risks, there's always an advantage. There's always a way because of the star power where you can pick and choose, decide how, when, where. That's cool to a point. But when you talk about legacy, man, you got to get it the same way you went after it. You should. It's not about Bivol agreeing or not agreeing. It's about what do you agree to, Canelo? Do you want it at 65 or 78? Then do your thing.
You're being a little unfair.
I don't think so.
I do. I think that Andre Ward regularly looks for ways to take shots at Canelo Alvarez. I don't know why, since him and Canelo have no history. They never campaigned at any of the same weights at the same time.
Is it my imagination, or does Andre regularly take shots at Canelo?
Sounds a lot like he's criticizing Canelo Alvarez for Demetrius Bivol's potential move downstairs to super middleweight to take him on there for his titles, for his belts. And very recently, Eddie Hearn expressed,
It's not Canelo Alvarez telling Dimitri to move down in weight.
that request is coming from Team Bivol. Demetrius Bivol, who in previous occasions, many times the last couple of years, has stated in plain English that he can make super middleweight and that he'd be willing to move down in weight for Callum Smith back when he was a champion, and he'd be willing to move down in weight for Canelo Alvarez well before he ever shared the ring with him.
He's been saying he can make super middleweight for years.
What his team seems to be saying now is that they're willing to make it for a Canelo Alvarez rematch because Demetrius Bivol, he wants more belts, whether they're belts at 175 pounds or 168.
Whatever is easier, his words.
But Andre is making it about Canelo, saying it shouldn't happen at 168, it should happen at 175. In truth, I don't completely disagree with Andre. I feel that Canelo Alvarez will never get full credit for beating Demetrius Bivol at 168 pounds, having already lost to him at 175.
If Dimitri were to lose the rematch to Canelo at 168, the first thing people are going to say is that he was drained, that cutting that weight, it affected him.
It's what people are going to say, so in that way, I feel that if there is going to be a rematch, it should be at light heavyweight.
So as far as Andre Ward's candor and what he had to say about it, that makes him kind of a hypocrite.
Here's a brief history lesson as to why that is. Bad Chad Dawson, who was a solid fighter,
Light heavyweight.
he, like Demetrius Bivol, said that he could make super middleweight. He could get down to 168 pounds. Wouldn't be a problem.
He said that the same way Demetrius Bivol saying that, but when Bad Chad Dawson said that, he was talking about coming down in weight for Andre Ward.
Andre Ward didn't stop him. Andre Ward wasn't insistent that the fight happen at light heavyweight instead of super middleweight. He took Bad Chad Dawson at his word, fought him at super middleweight because he said he could make it.
So why would you criticize Canelo for doing the same thing that you did?
If he were to fight Demetrius Bivol at super middleweight on the premise that Demetrius the one that wants to come down,
why are you criticizing Canelo for that?
it's strange because Andre Ward and Canelo Alvarez have no previous history. They weren't rivals per se. They never campaigned at any of the same weights at the same time, and yet it feels like in his retirement, Andre Ward has a bone to pick with Canelo Alvarez, not dissimilar from the bone he had to pick with Gennady Golovkin.
Back when Gennady started getting popular, Mexican style, big drama show, all of that stuff.
Circa 2014, 2015, Andre Ward had finally gotten out of that promotional situation, all those promotional issues that kept him out of action for some time. He came back a light heavyweight. He had some choice words for Gennady Golovkin. A lot of shade to throw at that guy. It feels similar.
The shade that he used to throw at Gennady Golovkin and the shade he currently throws at Canelo Alvarez.
It feels similar, and I can't help but think the reason that Andre Ward is so critical of Canelo Alvarez here today is because Canelo Alvarez made the history in the super middleweight division that Andre Ward didn't.
Andre had a good run as a super middleweight, Unified Ring Magazine and lineal champion, and that's all well and good, but Canelo Alvarez did the same thing, and then some. He became undisputed.
Andre Ward didn't. Didn't become undisputed at super middleweight, didn't become undisputed at light heavyweight.
It's hypocritical what Andre Ward is saying.
If you're going to diminish a potential Canelo Alvarez victory over Demetrius Bivol on the premise that Demetrius moved down in weight, are we supposed to diminish your victory over Chad Dawson?
Or do your own rules not apply to you?
Is there some kind of angle about this that I'm not seeing? You're criticizing Canelo because Demetrius might move down in weight to fight him.
How is that different from Chad Dawson moving down in weight to fight you?
What I'm saying here, it's not hard to understand. While I'm not a fan of Canelo taking on Demetrius at 168 pounds, while I'm not a fan of that, Andre Ward is in no position to talk.
He's in no position to criticize him for it.
Maybe you can, and some others as well. But Andre Ward is in no position to criticize Canelo for fighting a light heavyweight at super middleweight because he did the same thing.
That's my stance.
And it does feel like Andre is a bit resentful of Canelo Alvarez for whatever reason. Your guess is as good as mine, because wasn't he in camp with Caleb Plant ahead of the Canelo Alvarez fight, giving him some pointers on how to beat him?
Wasn't that Andre doing that?
Don't some of the things that Andre Ward regularly says about Canelo Alvarez come across as resentful?
They do.
I'm not a fan of the rematch, you know. If you've been following the channel the last couple of weeks and the last couple of months, you'll know that I'd much rather Demetrius Bivol share the ring with Artur Beterbiev. I'd rather him and Canelo not fight for a second time, let alone at super middleweight.
I'm not a fan of the rematch.
But I'd be lying to you if I told you that Andre Ward's candor as of late doesn't make him a hypocrite. It does.
It does make him a hypocrite.
When it comes to Canelo Alvarez, he just can't call it down the middle.
He can't do it.
He's not objective, not the least bit objective when it comes to that fighter. And it's getting more and more noticeable.
Any opportunity he gets to take a shot at that guy, he takes it.
Mark Kriegel said it best. He didn't think Andre Ward was being fair about all of this, and I don't either.
The same applies to Demetrius Andrade's criticisms of Canelo.
Stating, not saying John Ryder is an easy opponent, but come on, man.
Canelo is rumored to be facing John Ryder at some point in May at a location that has yet to be announced.
What's consistent with Andre Ward's criticisms of Canelo and Demetrius Andrade's is that they apply standards to Canelo that don't apply to them. In essence, double standards.
That's what they are.
Andre's criticizing Canelo for fighting a light heavyweight at super middleweight, even though he did the same thing years ago.
Demetrius is criticizing Canelo for fighting John Ryder instead of someone else. But who did Demetrius fight in his last fight?
A journeyman in Desmond Nicholson. A journeyman who sat him on his back pocket, need I remind you.
I'm not trying to sell you a dream about John Ryder. I'm just sticking to the facts. John Ryder is ranked top 10 in the division. Desmond Nicholson was not.
Canelo Alvarez fact, like Demetrius Andrade, he's coming off an injury, with the difference being that Canelo actually fought last year. Demetrius didn't.
Canelo fought 2 times.
Demetrius didn't fight at all.
You fought the Desmond Nicholson guy because you were coming off a surgery and you hadn't fought in a while, and that's understandable. But if that's understandable when it comes to you, why are you not understanding Canelo fighting John Ryder?
Because he, like Andre Ward, is a hypocrite. He applies standards to Canelo Alvarez that, at least they don't think, apply to them.
That's how these guys' minds work.
Demetrius said, how are you going to continue to call him the best pound for pound when he's fighting guys like that? You've got Benavidez, Demetrius Andrade, Jermall Charlo. You've got guys that you should have been fought, not John Ryder.
And who have you fought?
Canelo Alvarez fought Erislandy Lara, Austin Trout, Liam Smith at junior middleweight.
Who did Demetrius fight at junior middleweight?
Canelo fought Miguel Cotto, Gennady Golovkin 2 times, Daniel Jacobs at middleweight.
Who did Demetrius Andrade fight at middleweight?
At super middleweight, Canelo fought unbeaten Callum Smith, unbeaten Billy Joe Saunders, unbeaten Caleb Plant at super middleweight.
Who's Demetrius fought at super middleweight?
Like heavyweight, Canelo Alvarez fought then WBO champion Sergey Kovalev and reigning champion Dmitry Bivol. He didn't win, but he still fought him.
What champions at light heavyweight has Demetrius fought? Oh, that's right. He's never actually been up there.
And he thinks that Canelo Alvarez is the one with unfinished business. He thinks that Canelo Alvarez is the one who has something to answer for.
Because he didn't fight David and he didn't fight Jermall. You haven't fought those guys either.
In fact, who the hell have you fought at junior middleweight, and super middleweight? What the hell have you been doing all this time? Because you're what?
What?
Aren't you 34 going on 35 years old? Aren't you, in fact, older than Canelo Alvarez with less? Far less to show for it.
You want guys like me. You want guys like me to believe that Canelo Alvarez is running from you when you've been sat on your back pocket more times than he has by lesser fighters than he fights.
Vanez Martirosyan dropped him at junior middleweight. More recently, Desmond Nicholson, a journeyman.
He dropped him at super middleweight. Demetrius' last fight. The ref didn't rule it a knockdown. He ruled it a slip, but we could see it was off a punch.
Hey, you're supposed to be some kind of boogeyman. You're supposed to be somebody that Canelo Alvarez is afraid of, while he's fighting better fighters than you are. In some instances, better, more proven fighters than you.
Daniel Jacobs had a better middleweight resume than Demetrius Andrade. Callum Smith had a better super middleweight resume than Demetrius.
John Ryder still does. He fought them both. He fought Callum Smith, lost a controversial decision, and he beat Daniel Jacobs. More recently, he took care of your homework for you.
He fought unbeaten Zach Parker and beat him. You know Zach Parker, the guy you were supposed to fight before you got tennis elbow.
While you're keeping busy with Edgar Berlanga's sloppy seconds. Edgar Berlanga, who didn't once hit the deck the same way you did when he fought Desmond Nicholson.
He dropped him 4 times. You only dropped him once.
Demetrius thinks it's all right when he takes on a lighter touch off a surgery, but when Canelo does it, he wants to be critical.
Double standards.
That's what that is.
My honest opinion, I'd actually prefer that Canelo finally shut this guy up in September than take on Dimitri for a second time.
I'd prefer that after the Canelo versus Ryder fight, Canelo take out the trash and take out Demetrius Andrade.